Welcome into another episode of the Big Blue News Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Beesmore, and I'm joined today by former Kentucky defensive end who played from 1999 to 2002 for UK, along with having a 6-year NFL career. How are you doing, Otis?
Oh, Chris, I'm fantastic, and I appreciate you having me on the podcast. Good to
Oh,
see you.
I appreciate you joining me. So I brought you on to talk about your career before UK, your time while being a Wildcat, and then also your NFL career and, talk about this week's matchup for UK. So let's get right into it. So during high school, you played both football and basketball, but what made you decide to actually play, football in college?
So in high school, I actually played baseball as well, but the reason football was what I chose, it's just because it ended up being the sport that I was the best at. One thing there. The other was my baseball coaches pretty much kicked me out of baseball. It was like, hey, this guy's really good at football. And I was told that I wouldn't make the varsity team next year. And so, yeah, that was a little tough because baseball was my first love. But yeah, football is my true love. And I have no regrets.
Mhm. What was your recruitment process like in high school with, football?
Oh man, so yeah, the recruiting process was pretty wild. I mean, and it was different for me. So a lot of guys, they go on a ton of visits during the season. At my high school, we had a goal of winning the state championship. That was all we wanted to do. And pretty much the coaches said, look, you're not going, no one goes on any visits, any official visits until the season's over. And so a lot of schools, wanted me to come on official visits, and they didn't really love that I was saying, "Hey, I can't do it until after the state championship," which I believe on the calendar was December 15th. So really, it meant that I'd be coming to visit them in January, most likely, and that kind of just throws a whole wrench in their recruiting process and their schedule because they want to have these guys locked down sooner.
Mhm.
So I had schools, well, Nebraska's not that good now, but schools like Nebraska and Texas A&M, who were, cream of the crop at the time, and just kind of said, look, we feel like, you don't see us as your number one, and we're going to move on. And I was like, well, look, number one is my high school. We want to win a championship, and if I do anything outside of what we're doing, that's a distraction, and I can't risk that. So Kentucky was one of the schools that just honored my request. They didn't like it either, to be honest. But they were more patient than the other schools.
Mhm.
And when I got to Kentucky, it was just a really, really cool experience. I saw snow for the first time. Our van like slid off the road and hit a fence, and they were all freaked out. And we just thought it was awesome because it's snow and like we didn't die. It was like a nice little fun trip. Um, just like the people in Kentucky, they were so nice, and they reminded me of people in Texas. And I thought, yeah, I could see myself being in Kentucky. And there was another thing that happened, and if there's, I don't know if it's still happening, but a thing that turned me off about all the other schools that was recruiting. They would say, the one coach told me, son, if you don't come to our school, whatever you do, don't leave Texas. And I heard that, and I was like, oh, that's kind of weird, but okay. And then I heard another coach say it, and another coach from a different school, and a different school. All the coaches in Texas were saying the same thing. And I had this thought, like, I have got to get out of Texas.
Mhm.
If I don't leave Texas, I might never leave.
Mhm.
And Kentucky felt like a good fit. I went on that trip, and it was my first official visit. I actually went to see A&M beat Nebraska on an unofficial visit before that, but I just, I was like, yeah, sign me up. I want this. I want the challenge of helping to build a program that's not going so well. I like the challenge of having the opportunity really to play as a freshman. It just was a really exciting thing for me. And and looking back on it, I'm really glad that I went to Kentucky, and I'm really proud of what we're doing now.
Mhm. And I'm glad you chose Kentucky, and you're not wrong. Kentucky is doing great so far, ranked number 8 in the country, going into week 4 of the season. So that's great. So let me talk more about, your time before going into UK. I know you were mentioning about how, don't leave Texas, Kentucky. I believe it was Drake Jackson. He said that he wasn't going to, I believe it was Ohio State was the school that said, "Hey, I'm not going to, recruit you if you, continue to follow with UK." What do you say, to schools that, are saying stuff like that?
I say that it's pretty much that kind of behavior is pretty much the kind of behavior that it doesn't work in dating. It doesn't work with recruiting. I mean, the recruiting process is a courting process. Whether you're talking about dating, whether you're talking about getting someone to want to spend time with you and hang out with you just on a friend level, it's winning friends and influencing people. And the worst way to, one way to push someone away is to essentially be, insecure or come off as insecure and like protective and overprotective or whatever of your own interests. It's much better when you talk to someone in a way where it's like, hey, you know what? We really want you here, but we also want you to be here. And really the only way we know that you're going to know if you want to be here is, yeah, if you see what else is out there,
Mhm.
and we're okay with that. We're
Mhm.
very confident with the product that we have, with our facilities, with our coaches, with our academics, all the support that you're going to get. We're confident that Lexington is an awesome city that you're going to want to like live in, especially, I mean, I don't like to talk bad about like the competition, but if you look at what else is out there in the SEC, I mean, who wants to live in Starkville or Columbia, South Carolina? You know what I'm saying? It's a Lexington is a metropolitan town. It's not a huge city, but it's not tiny.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on, and the weather is nice, and the women are beautiful, and the horses, and I mean, there's just on and on and on. It's pretty magical. So just let your strengths like speak for themselves rather than get offended because someone's looking at another
Yeah.
school.
Yeah. Lex Vegas, but what made you be so committed, to your high school and, make sure you didn't go on any, visits to other schools because you said you didn't want to take any visits until after the state championship because of what, your high school football team said.
Yeah, so the commitment came early. We really at that high school level, we really, really had a strong appreciation for team. It was not about one guy at all. We had a motto of like everybody out of the wagon. Like there's no one who is like taking time off. No one's we're gonna help each other get to where we need to go. If your brother falls down, you pick him up and you help him get him where he needs to go. So from day one in junior high, like I'd never played football before. The first football meeting, it was it was us all sitting on the floor in the gym for 3 straight hours, just looking forward at the wall, and it was very kind of like military like.
Mhm.
And if you had to go to the restroom, if you had to get water, if your butt was hurting, and you got up, do not come back because you know we need people who are going to be committed to what we're doing.
Mhm.
And there were a lot of talented guys who wanted to do their own thing, and they were shown the door, you know. And so the ones that stuck around, it's like we've all bought in to that promise. I didn't win a state championship. I went to 2 state championships and lost both. One my sophomore year and one my senior year. The second one was like very heartbreaking, but there's lesson in losses all the time. So it's fine. But there was no way that I was going to do anything to be a distraction for my teammates. Most of those guys were not going to play at the college level. This was their last go round. And the last thing that I need is my brothers on the field worrying about how when this is all over, if we don't win, Otis is going to be playing on Saturdays and I'm going to be hanging out at home. that's not it. So it's just a commitment. You make a commitment, you just dedicate to it, and the guys who can do it, they win, and the guys who don't, they suffer. So yeah.
Yeah, and I'm glad you stayed committed. I know probably our generation or my generation, they struggle, staying committed to things, which, I don't know why that is, but let's talk more about why you decided to commit to UK. I know you told me you went on a visit and then you also had like a wreck because of the snow, but what was it that made you decide to, officially commit to Kentucky?
Hey, Chris, before we go to that part about why committing to Kentucky, I do want to just address what you were saying about, your generation. Um, I we hear that all the time, right? I don't know if I fully agree with it. I think that there's a change collectively across the board where people are having a hard time staying focused and staying committed. So if you look at a younger generation and you say, wow, you guys are having a hard time sticking with something, well, where did we learn that, right? Like, where did you learn that? If everything's changed about work to where employers are essentially taking whatever they can get from you and then tossing you aside when they don't need you or want you anymore, then like you are now conditioned to not really commit because there's a lack of trust there. So I don't really buy that concept, but it is a thing that's said a lot. And so like for your younger viewers who hear that, I just would caution them against like buying into it because it's a whatever that comes out of your mouth is what becomes the reality. And so hopefully everyone just starts rejecting that nonsense. But I mean, just digress there. When it comes to because I mean, look, I mean, I'm looking at you, man. You're committed. Like we've had conversations about what you're up to, and it's hard doing what you're doing.
Yeah, for
Very
sure.
hard to do what you're doing. Like you're like, hey, yeah, let's get on a podcast at 9:15 my time, your time, right?
Uh-huh.
And you're bright-eyed, you're at it, and then you got to do like editing and posting it. You got to cut it up for social media and all that
Yeah.
stuff. Like it's work.
Yeah.
And then you have a job where you get paid to do, right? So and I think that's you're representative of like a lot of other young people out there. So mad props to you.
Thank you.
But
I appreciate it.
yeah. But as far as like why did I choose Kentucky? Yeah, I mean, I touched on it a little bit. I mean, it's really I'm the kind of person who likes a challenge, someone tells me, "Oh, why would you go to Kentucky?" Like, so this is what I heard. Don't go to Kentucky. Tim Couch is leaving. I mean, he's done. Like, they're not going to win any games while you're there. It's going to be a struggle. Your chances of going to the NFL are going to be like non-existent. Blah 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 blah. And the more I hear people telling me like what I can't do and what's not going to work, the more I'm like, you know what? Let's find out. How about we find out? And and yeah, when I was at Kentucky, we did have 2 seasons in a row where we lost 9 games. Won 7 games my first season, 2 straight seasons of 2-9. But that second 2-9 season, it kind of like felt like we're on the ground floor of something special. And that's what I came to Kentucky for. That's what I came to Kentucky to build, where we're changing the way people are thinking about this program. And just shout out to Coach Morris, who passed recently. I mean, he was our coach that second year where we went 2-9, and it didn't feel like we went 2-9. It felt like something was going to happen. And the next year, yeah, we won 7 games. I think we should have won 9. And I also think that Guy Morris should have like continued to be the coach. But you got to pay the man. But either way, I look at that and I think we didn't get what we wanted, but like that's what I came to Kentucky for. I came to Kentucky to change the way we think about it. Like that year, our 2-spinner ran for like, I don't know how many yards, but he like led the SEC in rushing, right? Before that, it's like Kentucky doesn't run the ball. Kentucky's not physical enough to do that. So to see these guys just continue that work, that's exciting. And it's just as exciting as it was the day before I signed, the day I signed, where I was like, okay, we're gonna build something. Don't know when it's gonna like fully come to fruition. I'd love it to happen for me. I wanted to beat Florida. I heard all the noise about not being able to beat Florida.
Mhm.
Didn't happen for me. I wanted to win the SEC championship. Didn't happen for me. I wanted to win a national championship. Didn't happen. But like the challenge is what I wanted, and I wanted to play. So it's like, and sorry, one more thing. I want to play against the best. Like Kentucky was the only SEC school that was recruiting me. And I look around, it's like, I don't want to play against, like lesser competition. Like I want the best. And even if I'm on a team that's not considered the best, I know the guys I'm going up against are going to be the toughest opponents I can find. So that's going to make me better.
So now let's get more into your time at UK. What stood out to you the most during your time at Kentucky?
What stood out the most? Wow, that's a hard question to answer. I will say, as far as just like from the like you want to say from the football program itself, from the you know what, this is what I'll say.
Mhm.
What stood out the most to me was the fans.
Mhm.
The fan base, they showed up. They just showed up. They showed up. It didn't matter how bad we were doing. They showed up. There was like this belief, this desire to see us be better and do more.
Mhm.
And like that really matters. It mattered then, it still matters. And you hear people talk about it, but to see it every weekend, and yeah, sometimes we're not doing well and people leave early, whatever. But it's sold out. There's no reason a team that's losing, I mean, is selling out the games. You look at like a Vanderbilt game where their stadium is like half the size, and like, look, if they had a winning season, they still wouldn't be able to sell out the games, right?
Yeah, probably
So
not.
yeah, no offense to my Vandy fans or Vandy grads out there, but it's a whole different energy, and it's a pride, and the fans were giving us grace that we didn't even like deserve or earn. And so that's something that stood out to me, because if you look across like other fan bases, that is not how fans treat their teams. NFL, college, it's not the way it works. It's very, what have you done for me lately? And it's very frequent that you see grown people just dragging kids through the dirt on social media. And it still happens with some Kentucky fans as well, but like that's not the general energy. And so that stood out.
Do you have a favorite game while being at Kentucky?
Favorite game? Yeah, that's a really good question. You know, I feel like so I might have this wrong. I'm gonna, like, because I don't really think about the games too much. So it might not even be the right opponent. But I want to say we were playing Mississippi State, and so maybe it wasn't Mississippi State. Someone can go back and check this, but it was my first game like getting to actually play, and the way it all went down was I go down on the kickoff team. And, my job is basically to just, blow up the blocker and get to the ball carrier, right? Real simple.
Yeah.
Not that simple, but and so I'm running down the field like full speed. And this guy, he's in front of me, and I try to give him a little juke move. I'm not the most agile, but I try to pull a little cute move and juke him and try to get around him. He like pops me on my shoulder, and I do a little spin, fall down on my face. And before I can get up, this guy is now sitting on my back, pulling up on my helmet, trying to rip my helmet off my head. Like, so like we're, WWE wrestling or something. Except he was really trying to pull my helmet off, and it felt like he was gonna like break my neck. I mean, it was pretty scary. And I'd never experienced anything like that before. And when it was over, I mean, I go on the sideline and I was just seeing it, just pure rage. I've got tears of rage. Like it's just so like so so our D-line coach, Tommy Adams, rest in peace, great coach. This man comes up to me and he finds me because he saw what happened. I mean, I don't know how many other people saw what happened, but it was embarrassing. It was just wrong. There should have been a flag. The guy should have been kicked out of the game. He gets in my face and he's like, "Are you ready to get out there? Are you ready to get out there?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I was so mad. This man put me in the game at defensive end, so I get to actually play. And I'm pretty sure like my first series out there, I get like a sack, forced fumble, we recover it for like a safety, or I mean, it was like they recover it and it's a safety, and then the next play, or maybe it wasn't. I'm not sure. Maybe it was a touchdown. Yeah, I think we recovered in the end zone. It was a touchdown. So now we're kicking off. I'm back out on kickoff. I put in my mind that I do not care where the guy who catches the ball is going. I'm going to find the guy who tried to pull my head off, and I'm going to put him in the dirt. And that's exactly what I did. It felt great. I mean, it's like the things that you love about football, at least for me, hitting people. I mean, that was one of the moments where I enjoyed hitting someone more than any other time in my entire career. And I think that, and after that, this guy avoided me every time we kicked the ball off. He was running away from me, and that's what you want. I mean, that's the goal. You want the guy to be terrified of you by the end of the night. So, mission accomplished. That was pretty memorable for me.
Do you remember who the player was by chance?
I never know these guys' name. Like I never, I go through, I'm looking at the guys, watching film and you see their number. And I intentionally would just like not learn their names. It was just like, what's the guy's number? What's his tendencies? I don't even remember his number either, but I just never wanted to know their names. I never wanted to talk to them. It's like nothing personal, but I'm here to dominate you. And it's harder if you're, someone I know or I'm thinking about in that way. So I'm just a little nuts, but that's the mindset that I had.
I know we've talked about coaches before, and we've also talked about Mitch Barnhart, but what type of relationship did you have with, the AD currently at UK?
What kind of relationship do I have now or then? Or
your time at UK, because I know you said that you were so surprised that Mitch already knew your name whenever you were on campus already.
Yeah. So that is so when I was at Kentucky, I didn't really have much of a relationship with Mitch. I've talked to Mitch probably a lot more, since graduating than like when I was there. But I will say that, yeah, I was really impressed with the fact that this guy knows my name, and it's not just my name. He knew the names of every student athlete at Kentucky.
Yeah.
Because I talked to other people and they're like, it's like someone on the rifle team, right? And our rifle team is awesome now, but back then, like nobody cared about the rifle team. And he knew all their names. He knew the soccer girls' names. He knew everyone's name. And I just kind of thought like, it excited me to see someone come to do a job with that level of like attention to detail and diligence. And it made me feel like this guy has got something special. And it really was like, I don't want to say I was upset, but it really kind of bothered me a bit to see some of the fans, upset, with the whole ditch Mitch thing back in the day. And, it's like this guy, all he's doing is like just setting us up for success. Like you guys, you know, don't know what you're talking about. Like you don't see what he's doing. Like, and that's usually how it is with everything, right? Like people don't see what you're doing with this podcast and with your videos until it becomes a thing that everyone just generally respects and appreciates. And then all of a sudden they're like, wow, this guy came out of nowhere. Wow, Kentucky came out of nowhere. No, he didn't. We've been seeing, our volleyball team win a national championship, the rifle team, national champions, like baseball, like all on and on and on. We're building a top athletic program across the board. And I wouldn't be surprised if Mitch has like somewhere on his like vision board, a Wildcat network, where we're so well regarded that like people are gonna pay extra money to their cable provider just to see like Kentucky sports like 24/7. Like I would not be surprised. This man is building an empire, and we are incredibly fortunate to have him as our AD. And so I'm really proud of that and excited to see what's next with that.
Yeah, well, they do have a show on, I believe, LEX 18 called BBN Tonight. It's from, I think, 7:30 to 8:30, but they have a Kentucky sports show every night on the weekdays. So that's cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. Yeah.
But now let's talk about your NFL career. You played 6 years. What was it like once you finally got signed to an NFL team?
Oh man. Making the final cut as an undrafted free agent. I mean, I don't know, not everyone understands how that process works, but when you're an undrafted free agent, you are a warm body for camp. You're just there to help the other guys not have to work as hard. That's it. There's almost zero chance of you making the team. It happens, but it's super rare. And for me, I was a guy who came into Miami, and apparently, there's a scouting report out there that, was done by the University of Florida, which is not surprising that they would say this, but according to the University of Florida, Otis Grigsby was average at best. That's a quote. Average at best. So, and like every single day I go out to practice during training camp, and there was a tight ends coach there, and he was like, we drafted a tight end out of Mississippi State, Donald Lee, awesome guy, I think in the third round. And he's like, every single day we're stretching, he's like, Otis, how the hell is it that you're kicking the out of my third round draft pick when the University of Florida scouting report has you listed as average at best? And I would just say the same thing, like, yeah, coach, the coaches at University of Florida don't know what they're talking about. That's all I can guess. But to make the team under those circumstances, it was just an incredibly proud moment for me. And it's to me, it speaks to the thing that I already know, which is it does not matter how you start, it's like how you finish. And then how you continue to work once you get to whatever you think is the finish, right? Because it's never over. It's never over, right? So it's something that I carry with me. I don't know if do you listen to David Goggins at all?
I've heard of him, but I have not listened to him, I don't believe.
Highly recommend that you read his book. It's called Can't Hurt Me. But one of the things that David Goggins talks about is just how our minds will tell us that we don't have enough to like go past a certain point, but really by the time our brain is telling us that, we really have like we're only at 40% of our capacity. And so he talks about like the cookie jar where you go back into your memory of like things that you overcame. And it's like those things are the reminder that, what, actually you can keep going. And so yeah, I do reach back to that and I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I did what's supposedly is impossible. Like they expected me to be back at Kentucky the next semester in classes. When I came to them and said, hey, I'm going to go to training camp,
Mhm.
only if I can come back if things don't work out. And they were like, yeah, of course, you can come back. And then by the time I came back years later, they were like, no, like you can't come back on your scholarship. I'm like, no, I can. That's what we talked about. Like we discussed this.
Yeah.
You just didn't think that you thought I'd be back sooner. So it felt really good. I'm still very proud of it and made a lot of memories starting at that point in Miami.
Mhm. What was it like to play in your first NFL career game?
Um, Playing the first NFL game, it was it was just like the validation, you feel the validation. It's like, and for me, it was a long road to get there because in Miami, I played in the preseason, and I made the 53-man roster, but I did not play in one game. I never suited up. I just stood on the sidelines on Sundays, and the money was nice, but like I came here to play football.
Yeah.
Um, and then the next season I get cut by the Dolphins, and then I miss three straight cuts. Right, so it's like Dolphins cut me, Falcons cut me, Panthers cut me. And everyone's like, yeah, maybe you should hang it up. Maybe you should wrap this up. Maybe it's not gonna work out. And I'm just like, I've seen the competition. I know who's out there. I know that I can play. I know I can perform on Sundays.
Mhm.
And so when I finally got to play, and it was with the Carolina Panthers, I believe it was against the Tennessee Titans. I didn't do so well. Like I got I got destroyed. I mean, this guy in front of me was like way bigger than me, like one of the biggest players I'd ever gone against. And I remember, you know, like at the end of every play, he's just like hitting me. He's like punching me in my back. He's just being really just not cool. And at some point, I was like, "Hey man, like, why are you doing this?" He's like, "F you, man, because I can." And I was like, "All right, okay." And so, that had me go harder, and I think I got my shots in. But yeah, it was just the validation, and it was something that allowed me to just kind of like dig deep and go a little bit longer, a little bit further, and yeah, so it was pretty great.
So we just got done talking about, you know, uh, playing in your first NFL career game. What was the toughest part of your NFL journey, though?
This part, I mean, it's the toughest part is it's the mental part, right? You have got to find a way to convince yourself that somehow you're even though whenever you get cut from an NFL team, right? So when you get cut, they hand you this little sheet of paper, one sheet of paper, and it explains why you were cut. And there's like, and I don't know if they still do this, but there are like 5 or 6 reasons, like, and they check the box on it, right? And all of these reasons are a different version of you're just not good enough. And it's weird because it's like sometimes you make the team and then, 3 weeks into the season, you're not good enough. And then they bring you back. And then it's like, wait, I'm good enough again. And then they cut you again. And then you're not good enough. Like you see guys just coming in and out, in and out. Like sometimes like guys get cut and you don't even know that they're gone. And then like I got cut by the Falcons twice in the preseason. They cut me right before training camp started. And then all these guys, they're going through camp and they end up going to play the Colts in Japan, which like really bothered me that I missed that. Like what a cool experience. And then I come back, they bring me back, and guys were all talking about like, oh man, remember that place we went in Tokyo, this and blah, blah, all that. I'm like, no, man, I wasn't there. I got cut. And they're like, wait, what? Like, yeah, I wasn't there.
Mhm.
So it's like this constant like head game where you have got to make sure that you don't buy the lie that you're not good enough, and they're constantly telling you not good enough. And so I think that was the toughest part, but I think I did a pretty good job with it. And then I guess, and then really it's just if you're not making a team, if you keep getting cut, you go 3 years without being on a team, it's hard to have like a regular career when you're still training to play in the NFL. I couldn't get a real job. I was doing weird, odd jobs. Like, I mean, I was in Atlanta after I got cut by the Falcons twice. I was working as a substitute teacher. I worked as a bouncer at like this nightclub, a country western club called Wildest. I mean, like, I got middle-aged women yelling at me like, Cowboy Troy. And I'm just like, nope, nope. No, I do not look like him. That's not accurate. Nope. So, I was doing all kinds of things. Like I worked some terrible job, not for AT&T, but for a contractor who basically sent me to random AT&T stores, like AT&T wireless stores. And I would just stand in the store all day long. And whenever people would come in and they needed like some service on their phone, or they wanted to buy a new phone or get new service, I essentially would bother them and ask them if they wanted to talk to me about AT&T home services. Like, no, dude, I'm in a wireless store. I don't want a home phone. Like, I don't want, so it's tough when, you're not making the money that you could be making, when you're not getting traction, it's not working out. It can get really dark, especially, for guys who decide to like solve that problem with, alcohol and chasing women and whatnot, right? It's like you look for something to soothe your pain, and eventually that thing consumes you. So that was, I'd say, the hard part of the NFL. Yeah.
Before we get into what you are doing currently, do you have a wild NFL story to talk about?
a wild a wild NFL story to talk about that I will tell a story without telling who was involved. No, wait, let me think. Can I tell this story without telling who was involved? Yeah, it's there's a code. We don't. Let me think about this one. Okay, here's a good one. This one's wild-ish. I mean,
Wow.
it's very out of character for me, but it doesn't make anyone else look really bad or whatever. So, um, in Miami, rookie year, I'm just excited to be there. Hitting, going way too hard in practice. People are mad at me, whatever. One day before practice, we're in the locker room, and I look at this bottle of Maker's Mark in one of the D linemen's lockers, right? And this bottle had been there for like months. And then so this particular day, I'm like, hey Debo, like, what's that bottle? Why do you have that bottle in your locker? Like, what's up with that? And then Jason Taylor was like, yeah, Debo, why do you have that bottle of Makers in your locker? Like, are you gonna drink that? And he's like, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna drink it at some point. And JT was like, we should drink it. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, yeah, let's drink that now. Like, let's have some shots. I'm like, before practice? It's like, yeah, let's have some shots before practice.
Oh no.
It's like 96 degrees outside, and with the heat index and the humidity, I mean, it feels like it's way over 100. And this man wants to do shots. And guess what? As a rookie, I'm nominated to do more shots than everyone else. So I mean, I had probably like 2 or 3 shots right before practice. So I'm gonna deal with dehydration,
Yeah.
all kinds of issues. Like and I mean, I was really nervous about going to practice like in that state. So I'm at practice, buzzed. And there was this moment where my D-line coach, he's like trying to coach me up on something, and I'm not really following him. And he's like, Otis, what the hell's wrong with you? And then Jason was like, yeah, Otis, like, what the hell's wrong with you, man? Like, you seem like you've been drinking or something. It's like, and I mean, looking back on it, I feel like he might have told my D-line coach that we had shots, but I was terrified. Like I was terrified of him finding out that I had shots before practice. I mean, and in Miami, like guys did stuff like that all the time. I mean, I was on the sideline when we were playing the Patriots. First time I ever played against the Patriots, where I didn't play, I was just standing around. But before the game, or maybe it was the second game, yeah. So before the game, there was this crazy snowstorm, and the whole city was shut down. Like the airport was shut down, and we're thinking we're not going to play this game. Like, okay, like that. When does that happen, right?
Mhm.
But they decided to open the airport just so we could get in. I thought maybe we might die just trying to land because it's just ice and snow everywhere. It was a nightmare, but we made it in. When we get to the stadium, the entire stadium is covered in like a ridiculous amount of snow. Like all the seats are just covered in snow. And they let the fans in the game early so that the fans could dig their seats out. So I've never seen anything like this. They dug their seats out. It was freezing. It was so cold. There was a moment where during the game, I think this guy, Jamie Nails, he played offensive tackle, I believe, big dude. He hit a linebacker during the game, and Jamie's helmet cracked in half
Ow.
because it was so cold. Like the helmet just split, and there was 2 pieces of the helmet just rolling around the ground. And I'm on the sideline freezing. I mean, it's like the last thing you want to do is play in a game when it's that cold.
Uh-huh.
But like the last thing you want to do is on the sideline not playing, like
Yeah.
just freezing. And one of the older guys on the team, one of the vets, this guy had been playing for like 15 years. He's like, hey. And I was like, what's up, man? He's like, you want some? And I was like, he's holding this water bottle. I'm like, dude, it is way too cold for water. I don't want any water. He's like, this ain't water.
No.
I'm like, no, man, I'm not trying to get fired. Like, if they find out that I'm drinking on the sideline,
Yeah.
I could see myself getting fired. If they find out you're drinking on the sideline, they'll just say, that sounds about right, and they'll just move on. So yeah, I'm good. I'm good. So a lot of funny things like that happen in Miami. I had a guy throw a bullet at me once. He because I forgot the breakfast sandwiches. I didn't forget them. I just didn't think I'd need to bring them because I also had to get fried. Because it was our first road trip, and usually before that we had home games, and I had to get these breakfast sandwiches from this place called Mini's, and they
Uh-huh.
were actually pretty good. I mean, not as good as the ones I can make, but as far as like going somewhere to buy breakfast sandwiches, they were pretty on point.
Mhm.
So I had to get these sandwiches for the whole D line. And one day, so one week we're playing on the road, and they're like, okay, we need you to pick up the chicken from, I think it was like Church's or Popeye or something. And I'm like, okay, I got to pick up chicken. And I remember waking up, and I didn't want to go to Mimi's because you gotta get up early on a Saturday to go get these breakfast sandwiches. And I said to my girlfriend at the time, like, hey, do you don't think that I have to get breakfast sandwiches for an away game, right? I mean, I'm already getting chicken. Like, do you think they want me to get breakfast sandwiches too? And she's like, I don't know why I asked her. It's so dumb. Like, she's like, yeah, no, like, of course not. Like, that's crazy. That's just a lot of time wasted. Like, why would they want you to do that? I was like, you're right.
You're
Thanks.
right.
So so I so I show up to the facility. I walk in the meeting room with no breakfast sandwiches.
Oh
And they're
no.
like, Otis, where are our breakfast sandwiches? I was like, oh, I thought that because you wanted me to get chicken today that I wasn't supposed to get the breakfast sandwiches. And they were like, what? And I remember Adewale Agunleye, he's like, Otis, Tony the Tiger was calling my name this morning. He's like, hey, have these frosted flakes. And I was like, no, 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 not Tony. Otis is bringing in the Mimi's breakfast sandwiches. I'm not having the frosted flakes. I want Mimi. And you come to tell me that you don't have the Mimis? And then this guy, Larry Chester, who, I mean, incredibly strong guy, like just intense dude. He was just silent, just looking at me like he wanted to like kill me. Like, and he took a bullet that was like this big. I don't know. Why do you have a bullet this big in the locker, in the meeting room? I don't even know. Took this bullet and he threw it at me and it hit me in my chest. And he's like, next time you forget the Mimis, that bullet's gonna be coming a lot faster.
Oh no.
And I was like, y'all, this man just like threatened my life. He just threatened me like with like death. And they're just like, I mean, I can't really blame him, Otis. Like you're effing up. Like I don't like what should we say? Oh, Larry, you shouldn't do that. No, man, don't forget this. Don't forget the Mimis ever again. And so that was a thing. And then since we're on this trend of like me doing stupid things, man, so these aren't crazy things, just me just being dumb. But another time, so we're traveling, I go get the chicken, and this place, like, first of all, you go to a restaurant, like fast food restaurant in South Florida, it's a disaster. It's always a mess. Like the people just do not care. I mean, the worst customer service everywhere.
Mhm.
So I get there and I'm like, I need all the chicken, right? So they give me this gigantic pan of chicken, but they don't have anything to cover the chicken today. They're like, oh, sorry, we're all out of covers. I'm like, what? How am I gonna get this chicken from point A to point B without a cover on it? I'm like, okay, I'll figure it out. Fine. Well, okay, whatever. So I'm carrying this chicken to the plane. And we have like in Miami, we had like it was, so we flew it basically was private. Like, so we had like a large plane. The team flew with like owners and owners' friends and like media people. And so we're kind of like in the parking lot and I'm like rolling my bag to the plane with this chicken sitting on top of my bags. At some point, I hit a bump, the chicken flips over, falls down on the ground. It's like, there's a pile of chicken on the ground. And Jay Williams, who played defensive end, and he'd been in the NFL at that time, probably like 10 years, maybe 11 years, like old vet, like he's behind me. He sees this happen. And as he approaches me from behind, he gets to the pile of chicken. He leans down and he picks up a piece of chicken off the pile, takes a bite out of it, and then keeps walking. And I'm sitting here just demoralized. I mean, so if Jay hadn't seen it, if no one had seen it, I probably would just put the chicken back in the tray and brought it to them. But at this point, the chicken it's a wrap. And so I get on the plane and he's already told them. They're like, oh, she dropped the chicken on the ground, or what are we gonna eat? What are we gonna eat? It's a short flight to Jacksonville, man. Chill out. Like, I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, eat the in-flight meal, man. Like, leave me. Oh, they were so mad. So yeah, and then there's other stories that were pretty funny, but I can't tell them. So yeah, there's some stories for you there.
Yeah, I bet you always remember the Mimi's and chicken though after that.
Never forgot the Mimi's, never forgot the chicken, never, ever, ever left Popeyes without a top. Now, they also never gave me chicken without a top. That was like a strange thing. And fortunately, that never happened again. I might have just started going to different Popeyes altogether, but yeah, yeah. Didn't mess with their food anymore,
Mhm.
for sure.
So what have you been doing since your NFL career?
Yeah, great question. So let's see. So the NFL, my NFL career ended when basically, so so Brett Favre came into to the Vikings, and I'm thinking we're going to win a Super Bowl. Um, I get cut in the camp. It was a very surprising thing. Rick Spielman is, this man's like he actually cried when they fired me. No one had ever cried when they fired me, and he said, "We'll bring you back. Someone's going to get hurt. You'll be back." No one got hurt. But before that, that summer, I actually been studying for the LSATs, and I took the LSAT. Coaches knew I was planning on going to law school at some point. They didn't, all of them were joking with me like, "Why would you go to law school?" And I'm like, "Well, someday, like, you guys are gonna get rid of me, so I need a backup plan, right?" And long story short, I mean, the Vikings thing wasn't the end. There was a whole nother thing with the Rams, but we won't talk about that. I so eventually I go to law school. Like the next season, I go to law school, and I started practicing law in Cincinnati. I did corporate work, did trademark, copyrights. Worked with a lot of startups. It was really a really cool experience, and I kind of got this passion for the startup life. It's like I see these people. I'm helping these people build something, but as a lawyer, I'm realizing I'm not getting the full benefit of this. I'm helping them realize their dreams. I've got dreams. I have things that I feel like I can do.
Yeah.
So I want to try my own thing. Um, so at some point I started a company. I went to this thing called Startup Weekend. And Startup Weekend, it's a super cool thing. It happens all over the country. It was started by Techstars, which is a fantastic startup accelerator that I had the fortune of actually going through years later. But at Startup Weekend, I went up on stage. There was like over 100 people in this room, and I pitched this concept for a business for a 60-second pitch. And the concept was, hey, there are young athletes who need mentorship on and off the field. And I think that college athletes could be those mentors. We could do a matching type thing like care.com or whatever, or I don't even know if Uber was around back then. So it'd be like, you order up your athlete and he or she helps your kid get to new heights on and off the field. And, long story short, we won the competition. We won. I joined an accelerator called Ocean. It's like the first faith-based startup accelerator in the world. Started by Crossroads Church in Cincinnati, and I took this break from practicing law and failed miserably. I mean, it was great. I mean, I learned a lot, and then went back to practicing law, and then I moved to Austin. Practiced at a new firm called Pillsbury. So the first firm was Tapp, next firm was Pillsbury, and was doing something completely different, technology transactions, which is essentially you're dealing with transactions around so information technology, but the people that run all those things. So it's kind of like contracting around like human like work. It's kind of weird, but it's a big business. And that didn't work out. I realized I don't really want to be, I like being a lawyer. I like the law. I love the law. I love learning about things related to the law. It's helped me tremendously since I stopped practicing at firms, but it was like, I just can't do this. These people, for the most part, aren't really happy. You make a lot of money, but you're not really fulfilled. And it kind of hit me when one of the partners said to me early on, he's like, He's like, how are you liking it here? And I said, oh yeah, so far it's great. I love it. And he's like, well, this is about as good as it's gonna get. From here on, it's all downhill. And I was like, hmm? He's like, yeah, you get to partner and you make more money, but like more money, more problems, more responsibilities. So just enjoy this time. And I was like, good Lord, I need to get out. So I, eventually just got out of that whole thing, joined a startup called Players Health. And then, so they had an injury tracking and management solution that's now essentially the company is now like a sports insurance company. And yeah, we went through Techstars, had a great time, made some like friends for life. And, I ultimately had to leave because we were not making any money. And, I was just kind of like keeping myself afloat with like I had like this Airbnb business on the side where, a buddy of mine and I, we set up a 3-bedroom house in Los Angeles. We turned it into a hostel. So there's like 12 beds. So we had 12 listings in this one house. I mean, sometimes we had like 26 people living in this house. And, so I set this up and I set up 2 more Airbnbs in San Antonio. And it was just a fun thing because, while I'm a lawyer, I was an interior design major. So I love creating like beautiful spaces and just like watching how people interact with it and like tweaking and just making like dope experiences, right? And that kind of kept me afloat with Players Health for a while when I wasn't getting paid, but eventually it's like I got to go do something else. And I made a bunch of different stops here and there doing other things, but currently what I'm doing is I'm working with my wife. So she has a health tech marketing company called Distill Health. And essentially we work with, small companies, large companies, multinational companies, helping them with their marketing and branding in the health tech, so in digital health platforms, so digital health platforms, medical devices, things like that. And it's an interesting business where I do a bunch of different things. Like I kind of approach it like any other startup, where it's like, well, how can I help? So it's legal, it's recruiting. I don't do a ton of lead generation because, honestly, like the leads just kind of come to us, which is great. And I do a little social. But the thing that we're working on next is what I'm really excited about. And it's going back to those roots with like the Airbnb thing. I've always wanted to create I've always wanted to be like a hotelier, right? Like I like a boutique hotel, something that's just memorable, unique, that you can build like a strong brand around, where people just recognize it and they just like want to be there. So we're working on a glamping resort in the hill country of Texas. Like we're in the very early stages of like getting this started, but it's just like a really cool experience to be working on this with my wife. We've been married for almost 2 years now, and then the other thing that I'm working on is just like I mentioned before, I've got a 3-month-old baby.
Yeah.
Which is a business of its own. It's full-time work and
For sure.
and it's an absolute joy. So that's what keeps me busy these days. Besides fantasy football and the occasional Halo Infinite match online.
You can't forget our Madden matchups. We're 1-1 right now against you.
We are 1-1. I still have the free trial of Madden 23. And the games I've played, I've had some good games, and I've been completely destroyed by some people. And I don't really have time to play, so it's like I'm not going to buy the game, because if I buy the game, then I'll probably like just try to make time to play. But I do look forward to the next matchup. We can our rubber match, I'll have the Vikings, and I think they're getting destroyed by the Eagles right now, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I guess
Oh,
the
and
Bengals, man, they suffered a terrible, terrible, like,
two straight
gosh,
losses. Terrible.
that was not great. But I gotta tell you, I mean, they all for what they say about 0-2 teams having issues with making the playoffs and all that stuff. If any 0-2 team can bounce back, I think it's the Bengals. So, you know, they'll be all right.
Yeah, as I always tell my friends, it's only up from here.
Yeah,
But I'm glad
absolutely.
everything is going well with you and your family so far, and on your way to making a resort in Texas. Hopefully, I'll be able to stay at the resort.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I'd love that.
Yeah. All right. But now let's talk about this week's matchup for Kentucky. They're playing against Northern Illinois University. What do you think about this week's matchup? And do you think UK will win and possibly the MVP of the game?
The Salukis, right? That's what they are, the Salukis. Okay, so will they win? Yes.
Yeah.
They will absolutely win.
Vandy
I
beat
don't know enough about what's that?
Vandy beat them this past weekend. Beat Northern Illinois.
Vandy beat them. It looked like it was a closer game than it should have been, but I haven't been watching Vandy enough. I think Vandy typically finds ways to make light games, way more interesting than they should be. But yeah, no, I think this is just going to be a the challenge here is, do we show up and take care of the work at hand, or are we looking forward to the next game against Ole Miss, right? I think we show up. I think that we just dominate. The defense continues to dominate. I'm the things that I'm looking for and looking forward to, because I believe it'll get resolved, is looking forward to cleaning up the protection issues.
Mhm.
You know, I don't want to see subpar teams like sacking our quarterback, who I expect to be the MVP of the game. But yeah, it's a good kind of like tune up game. It's a good thing to just get in front of us and get ready for this next stretch of SEC games. Like I I'll be honest with you, I'm not even gonna watch this game. Like I didn't watch the I didn't watch last week.
Youngstown
You know
State.
what? I shouldn't say I'm not gonna watch, because it is gonna be on ESPN too, right? So
Yeah, it'll
like
be on ESPN2 at 7 p.m. Eastern time.
so I might watch like some of it, because it's on national TV, and I feel like anytime we can be on national TV, I should watch.
Mhm.
But like we should just absolutely dominate them. And so I'm really looking forward to more of the conversations after that, where more and more of the country is essentially waking up to this concept of like University of Kentucky football powerhouse. So let's dominate on the deuce, and take care of business with the rest of this SEC stretch.
Mhm.
Beat Georgia, SEC champions, maybe. I mean, I'm getting ahead of myself, but this is what I do. I believe, and hopefully, we'll meet in person for the first time at the national championship. I don't know. Who knows? Who
Yeah,
knows?
hopefully. Do you have a score prediction for the game?
Okay. Score prediction. I'm gonna say that these guys will. I think they'll find a way to score 10 points. I don't like it, but I'll say 10. So they get 10.
Mhm.
And, I don't see us really. I'd say we're getting, I don't know, 31. Like
Yeah, that's
I
one.
don't, I don't see us, I don't see us running up, like putting up Vandy points.
Mhm.
That's not doesn't feel like the kind of team that we are. I think that, you know, um, And I'm not saying that's like a classless thing to do. Like if we put up 70 points on them, like that'd be cool. But
Yeah.
I think what's cooler is just, if there's an opportunity to get younger guys game time experience, let's do it.
Hmm.
If there's an opportunity to protect like, our quarterback from the risk of injury in an unnecessary game minutes, like let's do it. So I'd say I'm gonna go ahead and say 31-10.
That's why I was thinking pretty similar. I was thinking 34-13 Kentucky for sure.
Okay. Okay.
And I've
Yeah.
been pretty close with my score predictions. I've been only like 3-4 points off each game so far. So
Oh, wow.
I'm getting pretty
Wow.
close with my score predictions. I'm like, maybe one time I'll actually get, right
You're
score.
like, you're like, maybe I should start gambling.
Oh, no, no, none of that.
No, that's when the predictions all start to fall apart.
Yeah. Well, those are all the questions I have for you. Do you have anything else you would like to add?
Anything else I'd like to add? Hmm. I feel like we've covered a lot. We've covered a lot. I'd say that you never know who's watching these things, right? Like
Yeah.
it's fascinating what you hear from people after you're on a podcast or you do something on a podcast. And so I think the only thing that I'd like to add is that if you're a young athlete, um, you know, I really just hope that you just kind of keep this perspective of you know whatever's happening in your sport at this particular moment. If you're not playing, um, if you're injured, if you've got some weird issue with your teammate or the coach doesn't seem to like you or whatever it is, because there's all kinds of problems that come up that like no one really prepares you for. You don't realize that one day you're gonna like show up and your coach isn't gonna like you, or like you're gonna just not be that good at a sport. I'm just gonna say that if you love the sport and you're passionate about like getting better, don't give up.
Yeah.
You know, don't quit. Don't quit. And the reason I say this is because like I was not always good. I was terrible. I was uh I was a guy who the coaches put me on. So we had an A team and a B team. I was on the B team and I was third string on the B team. I didn't play, and my dad wanted to know why I wasn't playing, and the coach said, "Your son is slow and awkward, and he'll never, if you want him to play, you're going to want to take him to a completely different school district because he's not good enough to make the varsity team at Judson. And even if he does, he won't do it until his senior year. And if he makes it his senior year, he will not play a single game." And that obviously was very wrong. Like all of it was wrong.
Very sure.
But it's all based on adults trying to determine your value without your consent, right? It's like I get to decide. So if you're a young athlete, you get to decide what your value is, and your value happens to be dependent on what you think about yourself, what you say about yourself, and then the work that you do to confirm that, right? And if you're a parent of one of these kids, of a child in sports, I would say, you know, um, try to just let them have fun. Let her have fun. Recognize that the sport is designed to have fun. If you ruin the fun before they discover their gift, they'll quit. And then you're going to have all kinds of other problems on your hands. So that's what I would like leave you with, because there are too many people getting this wrong, and too many kids are quitting sports prematurely, and they're missing out on all the benefits. And you know what? If they quit, it's not the end of the world, but why mess something up when you could just like kind of just like let it happen? Be a supportive person, but don't be someone that like beats them into the ground. So yeah, that's where I'll leave it.
Mhm. Well, that's very motivational for sure. And hopefully, everybody listens to this whenever people have a chance, because that's a great message, to end the podcast.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Otis. I appreciate you coming on to my podcast tonight. I'll make sure to get this uploaded on Friday.
All right, Chris, it's been a pleasure. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Appreciate it.
Go Cats.
Go Cats.